Every night at exactly 3 a.m., I hear footsteps outside my bedroom door. Slow, deliberate, heel-toe, heel-toe. They stop right at the edge of the light under my door, like someone standing there, listening. I live alone. No roommates, no pets. No one else should be here. The first night, I thought it was a dream. I woke up with that strange feeling of being watched, the kind that prickles the back of your neck. My clock glowed 3:01 a.m., and then I heard it. Step, pause, step. My pulse raced. I pressed my eye to the peephole. Nothing. Just the dim yellow hallway and shadows breathing against the wall. I forced myself back to bed, telling myself it was nothing. But the next night it happened again. And again the night after. Always 3 o'clock. Not 2:59. Not 3:10. Exactly 3 o'clock. I tried to explain it away. The elevator cables, pipes expanding, neighbors. But the sound wasn't random. It was measured, human. By the fifth night, I was writing it down, counting how many steps, what time, what I had eaten, anything to find a pattern. The only constant, 3 a.m., and the fact that it always stopped at my door. On night 7, I swear I heard a whisper. Not words, just breath, shaping itself like language. I sat up in bed with my heart slamming against my ribs. "Who's there?" I whispered back, but the silence swallowed me whole. I stayed awake until dawn. I ordered a cheap motion camera, the kind people use for pets. I taped it above my door, pointed at the hallway, and tested it. Perfect. I told myself this would end it. That night, I waited with my phone in my hand, ready for the notification. At 3 o'clock the steps came, heel, toe, heel, toe. My door trembled faintly as they stopped. My phone stayed silent. No ping. No recording. I checked in the morning, empty timeline. It caught the delivery guy at 5 p.m., my test walk at 10. But between 2:50 and 3:10, nothing. Like the camera just decided those minutes didn't exist. I called my mom the next day. I didn't tell her everything, just that I wasn't sleeping and thought maybe someone was wandering the halls. She told me to get pepper spray, change my locks, the usual mom advice. When I mentioned the hour, she went quiet, then said, "You know, when you were little, we used to find you in the hall at 3 in the morning. You'd just stand by the door like you were waiting for someone." My stomach dropped. I don't remember that. She changed the subject right after, but her voice was tight. That night, I moved the camera lower, facing the knob, so if anyone touched it, I'd see. I left a lamp on to cast light under the door. At 2:59, my body was rigid with dread. At 3 o'clock, the footsteps returned, slower, heavier. They stopped. And then the whisper came again, closer. This time it shaped itself into something that almost sounded like my name. My phone didn't buzz. The knob shivered like a pulse. I wanted to scream, but couldn't breathe. In the morning, I checked the tape I had placed just inside the door as a test. A faint smear stretched across it, like someone brushed it with a wet finger. Too faint to photograph clearly, but I knew it hadn't been there before. On the app, the timeline jumped, from 2:59 straight to 3:05. Clean gap, erased minutes. I replayed it 10 times, zooming until my own reflection stared back at me from the black screen. No proof, just absence. That afternoon, I ran into Mrs. Green, the old woman on the second floor. She saw the camera under my arm and smirked. "Trying to catch our ghost?" she asked like it was a joke. My mouth went dry. "What ghost?" She shrugged. "Old building. Keeps old sounds. Like shells keep the ocean. You hear things long after they're gone." Then she added, almost casually, "If you smell pennies, don't open your door." And she walked away, leaving me frozen by the mailboxes. I didn't understand what she meant until that night. At 2:58, a metallic tang crept into the room. Coppery, sharp, like blood on a bitten lip. The footsteps came on time. Heel, toe, heel, toe. My doorknob twitched once. The penny smell thickened, coating my tongue. I stared at the phone screen, desperate for a notification. Nothing. The silence pressed in so tight my ears rang. The knob shifted again, more deliberate this time, like someone pressing their palm against it from both sides. I couldn't move. The air in the room felt bruised. At 3:06, it all stopped. The smell faded. My phone showed a blank timeline, again skipping straight past the minutes I needed most. But when I pressed my hand to the doorknob, it felt warm. Too warm, as if someone had just taken their hand off it. And I realized with a sick certainty that whatever was out there wasn't trying to get in. It was already waiting for me to open the door. I slammed the door so hard the whole frame shuddered. My palm was slick on the knob, as if I had just gripped a living hand instead of cold metal. For a few seconds I stood there, forehead pressed to the wood, counting each shallow breath. The footsteps outside had stopped instantly, like they had been waiting for me to react. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise. It felt like something on the other side was still there, listening, smiling. I didn't dare move until the first faint light of dawn leaked through my curtains. When I finally backed away, I laughed. A short, cracked laugh that sounded nothing like me. My apartment looked perfectly normal. Coffee mug on the counter, jacket on the chair, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself it was stress, exhaustion, too much caffeine. But then I saw the handprint. It was faint but undeniable, just above the knob. Long, oily smudges, larger than my own hand, as though someone had leaned against the door from the inside. I rubbed at it with a cloth, then with soap, but it didn't fade. The wood had drunk it in. That mark didn't belong there yesterday, and seeing it made my knees weaken. Proof. I wasn't just imagining this. Something had touched my door. I called my landlord, voice shaking. I told him the locks needed changing immediately. He sighed, bored, like he'd had this conversation before. All the units have triple locks. You're safe. Old building, sound travels. I tried to insist, but he cut me off. I'll send maintenance to check the lights. Then he hung up. Just like that. I stood staring at my phone, furious and helpless. He didn't care. No one would believe me. So I called Noah. He's been my friend since college. The type who laughs at horror movies and says, asterisk if the ghost kills me, at least it pays my rent. Asterisk at first he laughed, exactly like I expected. But then I played him the recording of the whisper. He went silent. Okay, he said slowly. That's not wind. I told him about the footsteps, the camera gaps, the smell of pennies. He let out a long breath. I'm coming over tonight. Don't argue. When Noah showed up, he had a sleeping bag under one arm and 2 energy drinks in the other. Ghost hunting 101, he joked, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. We set up both cameras again, one pointed at the hallway, one at the inside of the door. Noah even downloaded a decibel meter app, determined to catch a sound the cameras might miss. His casual attitude helped for an hour. We watched dumb videos, talked about work. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I was safe. But as the night crept closer to 3 o'clock, the mood shifted. By 2:50, Noah had gone silent. By 2:58, we were both sitting on the couch stiff as statues, our eyes fixed on the door. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the fridge, the tick of the radiator. Then it came, the faint metallic taste of pennies, coating the back of my throat. Noah coughed. Do you smell that? He whispered. I nodded, too afraid to speak. At 3 o'clock sharp, the footsteps started. Heel, toe, heel, toe. Measured, deliberate, closer with each step. Noah's face drained of color. He clutched his phone like it was a weapon. Holy shit, he breathed. You weren't kidding. The steps stopped at my door. The knob trembled once, then again, twisting halfway. The metal groaned, bending under invisible pressure. The air grew thick, copper and dust filling our lungs. Noah gagged and covered his mouth. And then we both heard it. A whisper, clear and close. Not through the door, but inside the room with us. 2 words. Let me. Noah flinched like the words were electric. His eyes lit with something between terror and fascination. Open it, he whispered. Do it. I want to see. His voice sounded wrong, shaky but eager, like he was caught in a dare. My blood ran cold. Are you insane? I hissed, grabbing his wrist. You don't know what's out there. He pulled away, jaw clenched. It's just some creep. A prank. We need to know. Before I could stop him, his hand shot to the knob. He twisted. The door opened 6 inches before I threw my shoulder against it. For one frozen heartbeat, I saw the hallway. Empty, but wrong. The walls stretched too far apart, the light buzzing unnaturally, shadows bending at strange angles. And just beyond the glow stood a figure. Tall, crooked, more absence than presence. Watching. I slammed the door shut, so hard the chain rattled. The apartment shook. One deafening stomp echoed in the hall, then silence. We didn't move for minutes. Noah's chest heaved, his eyes wide and glassy. I could feel him trembling beside me. Finally he muttered, "What the hell was that?" But I had no answer. We sat there until dawn, neither of us daring to sleep. Every creak of the building made us jolt like hunted animals. When the sun finally spilled through the blinds, Noah packed his things without a word. His hands shook as he rolled his sleeping bag. At the door, he paused, staring at the warped knob. "Don't call me about this again," he said flatly. "I don't want to know." Then he left. Hours later, he sent one text. Erase those recordings. Seriously, forget this. He hasn't picked up my calls since. Now I'm alone again. The knob still bends slightly downward, warped by pressure that shouldn't exist. The cameras show nothing, just empty halls, blank timelines. But I keep replaying that whisper in my mind. Let me. Not let me in. Just let me. Let me what? Begin? Finish? Take my place? I don't know. But every night at 3 a.m., the footsteps return. And every night, I wonder how much longer I can resist finding out what happens if I let them. The night after Noah left, my apartment felt twice as empty. The silence pressed against the walls, heavy and alive. I kept telling myself I should feel safer in daylight. But even the sunlight looked thinner, like the building had swallowed some of it overnight. I tried to distract myself. Music, podcasts, anything. But the thought of 3 a.m. sat in my mind like a countdown clock. No matter what I did, I was waiting for the hour to arrive. By midnight, I had already checked the locks 3 times. Triple deadbolt, chain, slide lock. All sealed. I dragged the couch closer to the door, just to feel like there was another barrier between me and the footsteps. I set the camera back up inside the apartment, aimed directly at the door, then sat cross-legged on the couch with a blanket wrapped around me like armor. I told myself I wouldn't sleep. I had to see everything. At 2:30, the apartment grew unnaturally cold. Not the kind of draft you blame on bad insulation, but the type of chill that settles inside your bones. My breath fogged faintly in the air. I rubbed my arms, my skin crawling as if I were being watched. At 2:58, the metallic taste arrived again. This time stronger, so sharp I gagged. I pressed my phone to my lips like it was a rosary. Then, right on time, the footsteps began. Heel, toe, heel, toe. Slow, patient, deliberate. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat louder than the last. The steps stopped at my door. The knob twitched once, twice, as if a hand was testing the weight of it. And then, silence. I waited, counting seconds, my chest tight. Suddenly, a knock. Soft, polite, 3 taps. My blood froze. It was the most ordinary sound in the world, and that's what made it horrifying. Whoever, or whatever, it was didn't just want to get in. It wanted me to think it belonged here. I couldn't answer. My lips felt glued shut. The knock came again, louder this time, and then the whisper followed, curling under the door like steam. "You remember me." My skin went clammy. The words didn't sound borrowed anymore. They sounded like they belonged to me, like they had been waiting in my mouth my whole life. I stumbled back from the door, tripping over the couch. My phone vibrated in my hand. I thought the app had finally caught something, but the screen just showed one line. No event detected. My stomach lurched. When it was finally 3:06 and the footsteps faded, I collapsed on the floor shaking. I didn't sleep. I sat there until morning, staring at the door, afraid it would open on its own. When daylight finally crawled in, I checked the footage. Just like always, empty timeline, a clean gap. But when I scrubbed frame by frame, I noticed something new. For exactly 1 second, the lens darkened, warped, as if someone had leaned into the camera from my side. And in the distortion, pixels shaped themselves into a suggestion of a face. Not human, not symmetrical, a mouth too wide, eyes too far apart. Watching, I slammed the laptop shut so hard the screen flickered. The rest of the day, I drifted like a ghost through my own life. I spilled coffee, forgot to eat, ignored emails. Every sound made me flinch. When my neighbor's dog barked downstairs, I nearly cried from relief just to hear something normal. But the worst part was the waiting. Knowing that no matter what, 3 a.m. would come. That night, I almost begged a friend to stay with me. But I couldn't risk them ending up like Noah, terrified, broken, refusing to talk to me again. So I stayed alone. By 2:50, my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I set up the camera once more and pressed record manually this time. I wanted evidence. I needed it. The chill crept in. The taste of pennies filled my throat. And then, heel, toe. The steps. My breath came in short gasps. The knob trembled, then froze. For a long moment, nothing happened. And then, slowly, the chain lock lifted on its own. The metal scraped against the wood as if invisible fingers were testing how it worked. My body locked up. I wanted to scream, but the sound lodged in my throat. The chain fell back into place with a click, gentle, deliberate, like a warning. I stumbled back, hitting the coffee table, sending my mug crashing to the floor. The sound rang out too loud, echoing through the apartment. And then, for the first time, the footsteps didn't stop at the door. They moved away. Slow. Heel. Toe. Down the hallway. Fading, until silence. I collapsed to my knees, dizzy with relief. But then the camera beeped. I ran to the screen. The live feed was frozen. Not blank this time. Frozen. The last frame showed my door, and in the faint light under it, two shadows stood. Feet. Perfectly still. Facing me. The hallway had been empty, but the camera saw otherwise. When dawn came, I packed a bag. I told myself I would leave, find a hotel, stay with family, anything. But when I reached the lobby, Mrs. Green was there, sorting her mail. She looked up at me, her eyes sharp, as if she had been waiting. "You look pale," she said. "You've been listening, haven't you?" My mouth opened, but no sound came. She nodded as if I had answered. "Don't run. It follows." Then she tucked her letters under her arm and walked away, leaving me frozen with my suitcase half-zipped at my feet. I went back upstairs, shaking. Her words echoed in my head. Asterisk, don't run. It follows. Asterisk, I don't know why, but I believed her. So I unpacked my bag. And that night, like every night, I waited for 3 a.m. to arrive again. I told myself I wouldn't sit by the door tonight. I couldn't. The tension of waiting had eaten me alive. Instead, I dragged the camera into the bedroom and pointed it at the door from across the room. I propped my phone up with the live feed visible on the nightstand, then tried to lie down like a normal person. But nothing about this was normal. My sheets felt damp even though they were clean. The air buzzed with the faint hum of electricity, like the building itself was straining for what was coming. At 2:45 I was wide awake, heart already racing. Every second crawled. I thought about what Mrs. Green said. Asterisk, don't run, it follows. Asterisk, her words twisted around my brain until they didn't sound like hers anymore. They sounded like mine. At 2:58 the air grew metallic. Stronger than ever. My tongue felt coated in blood. I gripped the blanket, my whole body vibrating. At 3 o'clock, right on cue, the footsteps came. Heel. Toe. Heel. Toe. Slow, steady, closer. My camera showed the door, perfectly still. But my ears knew better. The steps stopped. The knob trembled once, then again, harder. And then, the sound of the chain scraping. My breath stopped. The lock didn't just twitch this time. It slid. Metal on metal, steady and deliberate. The chain lifted and dropped twice before falling back into place. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Then, silence. My phone buzzed. A notification. My stomach dropped. The app had recorded something. I opened it with shaking hands. The clip showed the hallway camera. For 3 seconds, the frame warped, stretched as if the walls were bending inward. And then, 2 shadows appeared at the bottom of the door. They weren't mine. They weren't Noah's. Just there, standing still. When the clip ended, I dropped the phone on the bed, my fingers numb. I stayed awake until dawn, terrified to blink. When light finally filled the room, I told myself I'd had enough. I needed answers. I marched to the second floor and knocked on Mrs. Green's door. She opened it slowly, her pale eyes sharp. "I told you not to open the door," she said before I even spoke. I didn't. I snapped. My voice cracked. "Then stop listening," she hissed. "Stop inviting it." She shut the door in my face, leaving me shaking in the hallway. That afternoon, I tried to work, tried to eat, but nothing tasted right. My laptop screen flickered with static for half a second. My reflection in the black screen didn't quite match me. Its smile was too wide. I slammed it shut. I felt sick. By 10 p.m., the dread had built into something unbearable. I knew 3 o'clock was coming, and this time, I was sure it would cross the threshold. I set up both cameras again, one inside, one outside. I pressed record on my phone, my laptop, anything with a lens. I wanted proof, even if it killed me. At 2:57, the smell arrived, coppery, suffocating. The lights flickered, buzzing like angry bees. My chest felt tight. And then, The footsteps. Louder this time. Heel. Toe. Heel. Toe. The sound of someone dragging their hand along the wall as they walked. A scraping, nails or metal. It stopped at my door. The knob turned. The chain lifted. And then, a knock. Not polite this time. Heavy. Boom. 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 My body jolted with each strike. The walls shook. The cameras both blinked at once, their LEDs flashing red. My phone screen glitched, the feed freezing on a distorted frame. In the frozen image, I saw myself, sitting on the bed, but there was someone standing behind me. A tall, crooked shadow with its head bent low toward mine. My real body spun around instantly, but the room was empty. Empty, except for the taste of pennies so thick I almost choked. I ran to the door and pressed my back against it, sobbing without realizing. The footsteps shifted. This time, they didn't walk away. They paced, back and forth, right outside. Each step was a hammer blow in my chest. And then the whisper came again, clearer than ever, through the door and through the walls and straight into my skull. You remember. The voice was mine, not borrowed, not distorted. My exact voice, speaking words I didn't mean. My knees buckled. I clutched my head, desperate to drown it out. The sound faded at 3:07, leaving only silence. I collapsed on the floor, drenched in sweat, gasping. The cameras showed blank timelines again. No evidence. No proof. Just gaps where minutes should be. But the warped screenshot on my phone stayed burned into my eyes. The image of me with something behind me, leaning close enough to breathe on my neck. That morning, I tried to leave. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys. But when I reached the lobby door, my body refused to move. My hand froze on the handle. Every instinct screamed that stepping outside wouldn't save me. I heard Mrs. Green's voice in my head again. Asterisk, don't run. It follows. Asterisk, I staggered back upstairs, dropped my bag in the hallway, and locked myself inside. I didn't even remember deciding to. Now it's night again. I can already feel the air getting colder, heavier. The taste of metal lingers even before midnight. My door is warped, my lock strained, my sanity cracked. And I know, tonight it won't just knock. Tonight it's going to try harder. And I don't know if I'll have the strength to stop it. That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I knew it was coming, and this time I could feel it hours in advance. The air was too heavy, the lights dimmer than usual, as if the building itself was holding its breath. My reflection in the dark TV screen stared back at me, but something was wrong. Its mouth moved even when mine didn't. I threw a blanket over it, shaking. At 2:30 the cold arrived, deeper than before, crawling into my bones. My fingers went numb even though the radiator hissed like it was working overtime. I wrapped myself in my jacket and sat on the floor facing the door. Every tick of the clock was another nail hammered into my chest. By 2:58 the metallic taste coated my tongue so thick I wanted to vomit. I whispered to myself, don't open it. Don't listen. But even my own voice sounded foreign. 3 o'clock, the footsteps started. Heel. Toe. Heel. Toe. Louder this time, heavier, as though something bigger than a person walked the hall. The chain lifted, dropped, lifted again. My phone buzzed, recording. I glanced at the screen, static. Not the hallway. Not my door. Just static, humming low like a growl. My body shook. The footsteps stopped right outside. And then, the knock. 3 sharp booms that made the frame rattle. My chest seized. Then the whisper came, but not from outside. From everywhere. Open. I pressed my hands to my ears, rocking, but the word vibrated inside my skull. My phone screen flickered. For half a second I saw my bedroom through the camera feed. Me sitting on the floor, but I wasn't alone. A figure crouched behind me, tall and bent, its face inches from mine. Its hand was on my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. Just empty air. But the weight of that unseen hand still burned on my skin. The door shuddered. The knob twisted violently, rattling as if something was testing its strength. The chain stretched taut. I crawled backward on the floor, heart slamming so hard I couldn't breathe. And then, silence. For a moment, I thought it had ended. But the apartment felt different. Warped. The buzzing lights dimmed, stretching shadows across the walls. My reflection in the window leaned closer though I hadn't moved. I choked back a sob. Then came the sound. Not footsteps this time. Breathing. Slow, ragged, on the other side of the door. I froze, listening. Inhale. Exhale. Too deep, too heavy. The chain lifted once more, and this time the lock cracked. The metal bent with a shriek. I screamed, lunged forward, pressed my whole body against the door. My palms stung from the pressure. The smell of pennies flooded the air, so thick I gagged. "No!" I shouted. My voice cracked, thin, useless. The door pushed back, harder, almost buckling. For the first time I thought the barrier would break. Then everything stopped. Dead silence. No breathing, no footsteps, no whispers. My body trembled as I slid to the floor, back against the door, gasping. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears dripped onto my shirt. My phone buzzed again. A notification, *event recorded, 3 a.m. My stomach lurched. With shaking hands, I opened the clip. It wasn't the hallway. It wasn't the door. The camera showed my bedroom from an angle I hadn't set, like someone taller was filming over my shoulder. The footage showed me curled up on the floor, clutching the knob, sobbing. And then, from the corner of the room, the figure stepped into frame. Tall, crooked, head bent at an impossible angle. It walked toward me slowly, silently. It stopped right behind me. The video ended there. Cut clean, as if it chose when to stop. I dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, screen face down. My whole body shook so hard I thought my bones would snap. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't survive another night. I grabbed my suitcase, half packed from before, and dragged it to the door. But when I reached for the handle, my hand froze again. I couldn't move it. My body refused. My eyes burned as panic swallowed me whole. I was trapped. At dawn I staggered into the bathroom, desperate to see my own face. The mirror was fogged though I hadn't run the shower. I wiped it with my sleeve. My reflection blinked a second too late. Its mouth curled into a smile I didn't make. I stumbled back, crashing into the sink, heart racing. I refused to look again. I locked the bathroom door and sat on the tile until the sun rose higher. Now it's night again. 2:40. The air is cold, heavy. The metallic taste is already here. My phone buzzes with a new notification even though the cameras aren't running. *event detected. 2:59 a.m. My blood goes cold. It isn't 2:59 yet. I stare at the screen, waiting. A faint knock echoes through the apartment. Not at the door this time. Behind me. Inside the room. I don't dare turn around. And I know, when 3 o'clock strikes tonight, it won't be standing outside anymore. It will already be here, waiting for me to decide whether to open the door that no longer separates us.